This is White Plains Week, the weekly roundup of White Plains, Westchester, and world news. With John Bailey, editor and publisher of the daily internet newspaper White Plains Citizen Net Reporter, WPCNR.com. Jim Benerofe, editor and publisher of SuburbanStreet.com and WhitePlains.com. And me, Peter Katz, formerly with NBC, ABC News, and stations from Boston to Los Angeles. White Plains Week, what's happening, who are the newsmakers, what's in store for the future. The views and opinions expressed on this program are solely those of the participants. White Plains Week is presented on Optimum Cable Channel 76, Verizon Fios Channel 45, and on the internet at whiteplainsweek.com, youtube.com, and wpcommunitymedia.org. Now, White Plains Week.
Good evening, Mr. and Ms. Westchester, White Plains, and the world. John Bailey. This is White Plains Week. I'm the Citizen Net Reporter. On my right is Peter Katz, the anchor for all seasons, and on my left, the Dean of the White Plains School of Journalism, Jim Benerofe, founder of Suburban Street. Not so long ago, right? And tonight, we have breaking news for you. And here to tell you about it is Jim Benerofe with the headlines.
And here are the stories for the weekend of 2016. City and French-American School of New York reach settlement. New site plan to be presented by end of year. A new Trump Today and Clinton and Friends update. New New York Bridge project begins to suspend cables from the bridge towers. We will have a video. Playland attendance breakdowns reveal who's coming to Playland. Exclusive up-close and personal video of wind power installation off Block Island by Richard Payne of White Plains shows future. 55 Bank Street Foundation going in and at new mixed-use project. City Center, Mamaroneck Avenue entrance coming along. Westchester Plaza on Main Street to get a facelift. Owners of Soundview Manor derelict mansion sue city. Joy Brown, America's first radio psychiatrist, passes away.
Thank you, Jim. And we go right away to the White Plains Week. Rollo Newsreel March of Time as we go into Labor Day weekend. The date is wrong. Somehow that slipped past editing, but you never know. And we are looking at the first real design of the French-American School campus aimed for Ridgeway Country Club, presented back in 2011. Jim, tell us about what that design originally called for.
Well, the design originally called for the entrance to come on Ridgeway, and then they were going to have a traffic queuing system and parking there. The rest of the project, I don't exactly remember.
Well, it was so long ago.
Yeah.
Right? Exactly. But anyway, last night it was announced via the agenda, which you spotted and notified me of. You got the agenda, that there's going to be a vote or consideration, perhaps, of a stipulation of settlement between the French-American School of New York and the city of White Plains over the French-American School Article 78 issue. Now, what does this actually do? Well, we've looked at the papers briefly, and if we can go to the next slide. The city would agree with this stipulation of settlement to consider this preliminary site plan.
It's a revision. It's
Yes,
essentially
yeah.
cutting down on what they proposed to build.
Yeah.
It cuts various elements as much as 40% from what was originally proposed. There would be fewer parking spaces. There would be a smaller footprint for buildings. There would be a lower student population. And presumably that would mean that more of the old Ridgeway Country Club would be preserved,
Maybe,
kept
maybe
as
not.
open space,
Yeah.
and would enable them to shield even more of what they plan to do with the property from the view and possible encroachment upon the peace and well-being of the neighbors.
Yeah. Now, going back to that slide a second, the entrance to the actual campus would be where the arrow points to the entrance. That's the White Plains Week arrow. And the entrance would be from Ridgeway onto Hathaway Lane. And there would be a gate right where the entrance is. Now, that would mean you'd have about a number of cars coming in between 7 and 9 a.m. and 3 to 5 in the afternoon down Hathaway Lane to make that entrance. That is the big change. They've eliminated the theater that they were planning to build, and they're going to perhaps build the lower form school. I think that's a raising, well, be that is, the lower school at another date, perhaps, but they're not building it on this plan. And they also are eliminating, from what I'm told, the road that would be leading in from North Street. But there seems to be two schools of thought on that, whether they are or not. This is all fresh stuff, and this needs fleshing out.
Now, in the past, when developments have been proposed in White Plains, a typical pattern would be that the developer would come in and ask for a lot. The neighborhoods would object. There would be negotiations, and then the developer would come up with a cut-down plan, which would make everyone a lot happier than they were.
Yeah.
And it's the cut-down plan which would go through and would be built. Now, is that the exact pattern that will be followed here? We don't know. We will have to see. There will have to be a new public hearing on this revision in the site plan. Essentially, it will be a new site plan. And the chances are there would not have to be the complete environmental review that they went through the first time, because what they're planning to do in the way of disturbing the existing site is less, and they have done a lot of environmental work on the site, but now we're confining it to a smaller area, confining the development to a smaller area.
However, the statement, stipulation, thank you, statement stipulation. Stipulation puts time limits on how much time they can spend on the review. The public hearing, according to the first copies out for this, probably would not start till after Labor Day of next year, although they referred to it as Labor Day 2016, but that'll be passed by the time they pass this agreement. So
the fact that it's
it might
passed
be a
doesn't mean
typo, it
anything
might not.
in a legal
But
agreement.
I just want to point that out.
I would think that part of the conversations that led up to this would be FASNY receiving some assurance from the city that this would be reviewed in an expeditious manner. And if you're going to drop an ongoing court proceeding, which already has taken a lot of time, if you've been through a review process, which has taken a lot of time, you as the applicant would want to be reassured that you're not going to be held up for extended years on end if you agree to a stipulated
on my
settlement.
website, I detail the days that the city is required to review various steps leading up to this public hearing.
Now,
the public hearing can be held, and only, according to the settlement now, only extended once, continued once, and it has to be started up again in 15 days. Now, whether or not they would have to revise that if some complaints are made, perhaps there won't be any. I don't think so. But
Any business negotiator, if you were to ask Donald Trump, how would you negotiate a deal like this? I think he probably would tell you that you would not sign off on a stipulation on a settlement unless you knew what the outcome was going to be and unless you had reasonable assurance from the other side that they are
like,
going to.
that's calling on a vote for something where you don't have the votes, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yes.
in politics and government, you seldom see people demand a vote on something unless they know what the outcome is going to be.
Only in White Plains, though. That sometimes happens.
We will have to
Yes.
see. Now,
Yes.
already there's been some reaction on the part of the Gedney Association.
Yes, in an email, if I can find this delightful little one here. In the email, they claim that this is just what they wanted all along. And as you pointed out, Jim, in the original plan, that's exactly where the entrance was going to be, off of Ridgeway. But they didn't like that. So then they came up with the North Street plan. The city and FASNY worked out the North Street entrance plan. Well, that was rejected because Hathaway was not voted to be closed as it was supposed to be.
So
now we're back
this will
to
this will be on the Common Council agenda for the regular stated meeting for September, which comes up
Tuesday night.
after the holiday weekend, which
Yes.
is coming up, and we will then have to see if anyone is interested in looking at the documents here. You can go online to the city's website, and if you look under the Common Council agenda section, you will see not only the agenda for the meeting, but you should be able to download what's called the backup meeting packet.
It was not there last night, but it may be there today.
And
Friday,
when
we're
you
taping Friday morning.
When you do that, when that finally is posted in advance of the meeting, you would be able to read the same documents that the council people will be reading.
So what do we think about this?
Well, I think that basically it's a good idea. I mean, I think they've cut back tremendously. And I think that they've got the entrance in the right place now. I think it's been simplified immensely.
Well, you've cut back the buildings, the footprint of stuff you're going to be putting on the property. You've cut back the number of cars you'll be handling, so therefore you cut back the size of the parking lots you have to provide. You've cut back the student enrollment, which means there'll be somewhat less activity going on there. So it works out to being a smaller project. Now, whether that's satisfactory for the neighborhood remains to be seen. I would tend to think that there will be some neighborhood opposition, as we've heard in the past.
Well, there has already been a call to arms by the Gedney Association, sent out an email last night, which says, FASNY wants the city to agree to a settlement with certain terms, all benefiting the proposed FASNY project. FASNY will drop the lawsuit if the city agrees to a new site plan with various restrictions and deadlines that must be met by the city for approval of their plan. And they want this tabled from Tuesday. They're calling to table the resolution that would approve the stipulation. And
I don't see that happening. I don't think legally
see it happening either. But
I think that the school realistically had the city in a very rough position. And I don't think the city could do anything else. This is the best they can come up with. And if the Gedney Association persists, I think that the cost, long run, will be intolerable.
One last thing on this, we have the complete Gedney Association statement on my website, WPCNR.com. It's the lead story, and we go over some of the time limits. Meanwhile, the presidential campaign. Peter, give us a Trump Today and Clinton and Friends update.
It has been quite a week on the campaign trail. Donald Trump went to Mexico, and he had a meeting this week with the president of Mexico, Enrique Peña Nieto.
Very good.
Thank you for that. They each made rather diplomatic statements after the meeting. There was a photo opportunity in which I must say Donald Trump looked somewhat presidential, standing on a platform not too far from the President of Mexico against what looked like a marble backdrop, looking as if he was standing at the UN General Assembly or something. Unfortunately, according to the President of Mexico, Donald Trump lied. In his statement, Donald Trump said that when they discussed the wall, the matter of who would pay for the wall did not come up. The President of Mexico says in no uncertain terms he told Trump Mexico will never pay for building the wall that Trump wants. Shortly after leaving Mexico City, Trump arrived in Phoenix, and that night in Phoenix he gave about an hour-and-a-quarter speech which covered largely immigration, which is the hallmark of his campaign as an issue. And after that hour-and-a-quarter speech, we still don't know where Donald Trump stands on immigration, although it sounded very much as if he completely backed off his initial hard line, which was we're going to deport all 11 million illegal aliens in this country. Also this week, Hillary Clinton came to White Plains. Actually, it wasn't quite this week. It was last Saturday, over the weekend. And at the FBI's offices at the intersection of Bloomingdale and Mamaroneck, she received her first security briefing, an update on what's been going on in government and the world, according to the CIA and according to government intelligence sources. Both candidates are entitled to receive such briefings. Hillary, of course, had received numerous security briefings as a result of her service to the government, both in the Senate and as Secretary of State. So she came to White Plains, and at the FBI building she got an update. And Donald Trump had previously been given an update, his security briefing. That took place at the FBI headquarters in Manhattan.
Let's hope he doesn't spill anything.
There are some concerns
that
Trump might, given his track record on rhetoric. Hillary Clinton was really not visible on the campaign trail terribly much this week. She did make a speech in which she talked about veterans' matters and pledged to do much to improve the lot of veterans, people who have served this country. We did find out that in the month of August, Hillary Clinton raised over $140 million. Part of that goes to her campaign. The bulk of it, however, goes to the Democratic National Committee. Trump continued his campaign efforts during the month. We don't yet have those figures reported for the Trump campaign.
Okay. Thank you, Peter. And also something very interesting happened this week. The Tappan Zee Bridge, the new one, started hanging cables. And there's a still of it. And here's a video of what the bridge looks like yesterday. That's looking across from the vantage point and on the...
That's the Tarrytown side, down by the Tarrytown Yacht Club, I think, in that area.
Absolutely. And
what you do when you build a suspension bridge is that the roadway, the decking, is hung from cables.
Right.
And you have to spin the cables, the main suspension cables, one strand at a time. Right. They're held up in the air on the tops of those towers that you see.
Yeah, and they're putting in the, what do they call those steel resting decks?
The deck, the girders.
The girders that will hold the concrete. And that was happening this week, and you see those, I guess, those cables extending down.
Well, it's a single strand of wire, and after they have spun thousands of strands of wire across the cables and anchored them to the anchorage, then they compact those strands to create the massive cables that you see on a suspension bridge, and then suspension cables from the main cable go down, and that's what the roadway is hung from.
Right. And we'll trying to keep track of this as
the
this takes shape.
the
There's
meaning
more
of it
concrete
is,
to be laid, though.
I mean,
Let's
the
put it that way.
whole meaning of it is that it's now turning into a real bridge. They are making good progress on this.
And they probably have a pretty good shot at this rate to meet their deadline in 2018. Now, we talked about Playland last week. Remember we showed you the Playland figures last year about how the Playland this year.
Well, comparing it year to date, comparing last year to this year, year to date.
Right. So we also got some statistics on how this attendance breaks down, and what of the 400,057 who attended the park as admissions, 50% were Westchester residents, 197,000. 30% were non-residents of Westchester. The rest were groups and promotions. Half of the 198,888 road rides, 74,000 were spectators. That's interesting. You got to convert those spectators to riders.
Well, the significant thing, though, John, is that the attendance is down, and the big question is going to be, will Playland have made money this year? And last year, as we know, it made a lot of money. They made about $1 million or so running Playland. Now we're in a situation where this particular season, the county was still in charge, but the company, which is in contract to take the role of running Playland in the future, had the opportunity to come in side by side with the county and observe and give its input and see where they wanted to go. Now, my question is, if indeed the attendance figures don't bounce back this weekend, and the weather may not permit them to bounce back this weekend,
to go before the season ends,
does it give the operating company an opportunity to say, hey, this isn't quite what we thought it would be, we want to renegotiate our contract?
You never know, particularly with this RYE Article 78 that they've filed, which may drag on.
Well, that's right. RYE is not happy with the way the environmental review was conducted. They felt they should have some input, so they filed a court case, an Article 78 proceeding to try to.
And they're going to have to change that park a lot to, pump that attendance up to 1 million, which they have boldly predicted. And you got to sell more of those season passes and get more usage out of them.
Well,
Each person average 3 visits.
But basically, John, you have to do more advertising, more promotion, and you have to attract more people.
There was not much of that. And look at that. 4% of the whole attendance were seniors. That's astounding to me. But anyway, we also last week, we showed you this off Block Island. And we talked a lot about that. Right there, almost
in the center of the picture, it's a windmill, power generation windmill.
Yeah. And Richard Payne, who runs the Criterion Bicycle Race in White Plains, his family lives on Block Island, and he shot this video for the company. That's their boat moving out across the Atlantic, and he shot this from his drone. And that's a look at the drone from the drone, showing how really massive these towers are. And that's Block Island in the distance, 3 miles offshore. Thank you, Rich, for that great video. We hope to interview Rich about the whole effect of these windmills.
Once the turbines are in business generating electricity, they anticipate that the cost per kilowatt hour on Block Island will drop from 63 cents for each kilowatt hour of electricity they use down to around 20 cents, or comparable to what we pay here in Westchester.
But meanwhile, we're going in the opposite direction.
You mean price going up?
Price going up, right. True. Jim, here's a picture of 55 Bank Street as it looked yesterday afternoon. There's that super crane.
Well, that's the crane.
And here's the foundation, or how far they've gotten. They're really making progress. What do you think?
Well, I think they're getting ready to do their, that is the foundation, I think, and they're getting ready to do their first floor. And once they get really up out of the ground and they get the first floor and the second floor, it will probably move along.
Perhaps they'll reach the floor a week pace at the city center.
Now, these days, though, they can keep pouring concrete well into the cold winter months. Back in the old days, I think you used to have to stop as soon as there was a first sign of a chill. But don't they have new formulations of concrete?
But I don't know exactly what it is, how it's treated, and so forth. But they...
Right. Now, another shot. City Center's entrance is finally beginning to take shape.
The idea that's to put in escalators to make it easy to get up to the movie theaters from Mamaroneck Avenue. Right. That's something that was talked about when this project was first built
13 years in the making, folks. 13 years in the making.
Now they're finally doing that.
And the new Westchester Plaza, there's how Westchester Plaza looks today.
This was proposed to the Common Council that the owners of this property want to dress up the plaza, the front entrance.
This is their next slide shows how they would dress it up. And this is taken off the website. And there's going to be a little performance area some more tables, and it's nice to see people looking forward and trying to liven up that area. Now, we had a death in the media business just this week. Joy Brown, who was the first psychologist, or was it psychiatrist?
Psychologist.
Psychologist. Died. Now, she was the first psychologist.
She was a pioneer in the self-help talk show business, you know, where people could call in and ask for advice. She appeared on WOR here in New York, also, if I recall correctly, on WNBC, when WNBC was a real radio station. Now it's WFAN, the sports station. That was nasty to say, to make that snide remark about it being a real radio station in the old days.
Sports radio,
a full-service radio
cannot be
station.
sneezed at. It does draw an audience.
On People to Be Heard, we will be having an interview with Julie Killian, who is a Republican running for the state Senate seat currently held by George Latimer. And we'll also be interviewing George Latimer. The series is called People to Be Heard. Look for it on cable and also on whiteplainsweek.com. You can see these shows anytime you want on the internet, also on YouTube.
Yes, and I will see you on the radio on WVOX Tuesday morning.
That's a full-service radio station, like the old days, right?
Yes.
1460 on the AM dial here in Westchester.
And I give full service for 3 minutes. Generally, this is John Bailey, Jim Benerofe, and Peter Katz saying good night for White Plains Week.
This has been White Plains Week, news and commentary about White Plains, Westchester, and the world. The views and opinions expressed on this program were solely those of the participants. White Plains Week, produced by White Plains Citizen Net Reporter, and presented on Optimum Cable Channel 76 and Verizon Fios Channel 45. You may view White Plains Week anytime on the internet at whiteplainsweek.com, youtube.com, and wpcommunitymedia.org. For White Plains Week, this is Peter Katz speaking.